Hi, my name's Jasmine Graham. Everyone calls me Coach Jazz, and I am an IIN health coach. I graduated in June of 2020.
So I'm Susan Scollin. I'm a holistic health coach, and I work with mums and dads who have lost their spark after having kids. And we work together to define their dreams and bring them back to who they truly are, right where they are. So nothing needs to change. It'll just be them evolving, which is really beautiful.
So my name is Kim, and I grew up in Geneva in Switzerland. I studied hospitality in a school in Lausanne. That's where I met Katie. And in 2019, while I was in Bali, I decided to take the IIN course.
I'm Katie, and as much as I think what IIN does is amazing, I haven't studied the courses, but I'm working with Kim on a nutrition-based project at the moment to raise awareness about eating disorders in our local area in Geneva. And that's how she kindly and gracefully asked me to be here with her today, because we're working together on it. So.
Before I enrolled in IIN, I was doing personal training, and I was a group fitness instructor. I just closed my gym in that year before, January of 2019. I'd had a boutique fitness gym in the city for 7 years, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And I had to close it so that I can heal from a lot of stress that came with being an entrepreneur and running a business that's definitely tough.
So I was contracting to a federal government agency here in Australia and doing project management in the biometric space.
Prior and during most of my IIN course, I was marketing manager and guest relations manager at a hotel in Bali. And so working in hospitality, and that's what I studied before. And towards, let's say, the second half of the course, because of the pandemic, I came back home and focused on holistic health course.
I knew that I had more to offer the world, but I didn't exactly know how to go about it. And I started doing research, and I saw life coach. I'm like, that's not it. I was really into nutrition because I have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune for the thyroid. And changing my diet was huge for me. I'd lost 25 pounds by that point. And so I wanted to do something to help people. I realized that I love the holistic approach. It's basically how I approach fitness myself. So then taking it a step further and really getting all the information about what made up a health coach. And it really resonated with me. That was in September of 2019. So I'd gone through a year of healing after closing my gym, figuring it out, and I signed up for the 6-month intensive, and I hopped right in, and it was a life-changing experience for me.
So I was practicing following my intuition. In 2013, my son was born and I had postnatal depression, and I dug myself out of that hole. And a couple of people I'd met on my journey had been to IIN. And I'd always been into nutrition, but I'd never studied it formally. So I got curious about it. I watched the sample course, and I just felt in my body that it was something that I needed to do. I know that I was super nervous because I hadn't studied in years. So the thought of doing, committing to 12 months was challenging for me. So I just dove in, and I remember getting on that call with IIN and knowing that I was a hell yes. Like, I was not coming off that call and not being enrolled in IIN, and that I was just going to move forward. So that was my journey to IIN, and I have no regrets at all.
I would say that it's just my own journey that led me to IIN. Growing up, I struggled with binge eating disorder and low self-esteem, and all that is tied with the binge eating disorder. And so over the years, I worked myself with a coach from IIN, And first in 2016, I really wanted to take the course, but didn't feel ready enough. And finally in 2019, I decided that I was never going to be ready. So I decided to go ahead and take the course.
I would say what really inspired me the most was the IIN's ability to give me so much about primary food and really understanding all the pieces that make up your overall well-being. You know, your fitness, yes, your nutrition, yes, but your finances, your spirituality, your relationships, your sleep, your home cooking. So all these things come together. And to me, that was so inspiring because you really begin to understand what the body needs from a mind-body perspective. And that was so inspiring for me because I always believed in the mind-body connection, but didn't know it to such detail. And seeing how when you get one thing in order, how it kind of helps everything else, how it branches out to encompass your overall well-being. So doing that was so inspiring for me because it helped me where I was in my life, and it also allowed me to inspire and help others with their journey.
There were so many aspects of the IIN experience that inspired me. The curriculum was amazing. The guest speakers were amazing. But I guess the thing that inspired me the most, and it's actually led me to put out my podcast, is how unique everyone's story is. So we do health histories with fellow students, and it always blew me away how incredible and unique everyone's story was. And, I was always honoured that I got to listen to these stories and I got to just learn from people and how they had overcome their adversities and moved forward. And everybody was always so open and transparent and excited about being there. And so, that led me to creating my own podcast where I do a similar thing, where I interview everyday people who have overcome their challenges in the health and wellness space, just to inspire other people that they can make those changes too. So that was probably one of my biggest takeaways.
I would say the main thing is your mess is your message. And whatever I went through is helping me to guide and support other people now. And during IIN, I met an incredible community and people I have never met that actually are part of my close friends and people that support me and we support each other. We created a mastermind out of IIN and all of that. So it's absolutely fantastic. One of the main core concepts of IIN around bioindividuality is something that really resonates with me. And I think that it applies to not only food, but also all other areas of life, primary foods and so many others.
I didn't think I had that much strength to be able to finish the IIN course and go through those months of studying through a pandemic. In the midst of the pandemic, I had an aunt that passed away. She lived literally upstairs from me, and I had to end up giving her CPR, and unfortunately she passed. But it was like layer upon layer of things, and my strength really came from a lot of what I learned also from IIN. I learned how to tap into my spirituality. And I realized as the events unfolded in different ways in different parts of my life, I was really able to be mindful in respect of, I'm aware this is happening. It doesn't define who I am. I am aware, how am I going to handle it? What am I going to pull from to be able to make it through? And there was a time where I would not have been able to step away, look at the situation. I would have been in it fight or flight, stress reaction immediately. And what I learned in this year is what mindfulness really means in dealing with everyday life and situations, because it hasn't stopped. I learned that the world isn't going to stop. I have to find a way to be able to not only deal with it, but if I want to thrive, I've got to pull that strength from within.
Yeah, it has been a difficult year for a lot of people. And if I'm being completely honest with you, last year wasn't a struggle for me. It was actually the year that my family made life-changing decisions. And this came off the back of a challenging 2019. During 2019, I was working and studying with IIN. My husband lost work for over 7 months, which led to financial difficulties, and we had to sell a number of assets. And then the engine of our 7-year-old car, which was going to be our car forever, blew up. I didn't know how we would get through any of this, and I know there was definitely some overwhelm in that space. But of course we did. And when I look back, it was all about taking one step at a time, not getting overwhelmed. And as I mentioned before, if I did, because it did happen, often I would go to bed in tears. And when I say often, doesn't mean every day. It was just, maybe at the end of a week when I was tired and I'd had enough, I just would go to bed in tears. But I would always wake up with a new belief that we could get through it. And the other thing was that communication with my husband was key. So taking that time out and spending time talking about my fears and talking about my challenges with him was really important. So when COVID hit in 2020, it was just take one step at a time, work together, find the path of least resistance. And I stopped doing things that didn't bring me joy or that sent me into overwhelm because of everything that was happening. I chose to walk most days and getting out into the sunshine and just cherishing the little things, cherishing the time with my family, knowing that this wasn't going to last forever, and finding, like I said, that path of least resistance. What's working for us now, and how can we move forward here in a way that is really aligned to us and brings more light and joy into our life.
So personally, I decided pretty early on that if I was going to make it out of this year, I'd have to shift the narrative from the one that the media was pushing, which was total apocalypse, total doom and gloom, and just focus on like the little things I could do to make myself happy. So for me, it was about shifting my internal narrative to be a bit more positive than the one that we were being fed.
And for me, it was through my voice. I managed to stay strong by actually changing what I thought of being strong. It's not about not showing weakness. It's not about pretending that everything is going fine. And so on some personal work led me to expressing myself more, and that is on social media mostly. But by being authentic and vulnerable and really sharing my thoughts and sharing more of my past struggles and my journey, that really supported me through that year.
I've always been brought up with you get on with things, you just do things. You don't talk about it so much. You just have to keep moving forward. So this is a real rub for me between knowing that that's not my truth, but continuing to live it out, especially during tough times. I know that I can lean on my husband, and I know that I can be vulnerable, but vulnerability brings feelings of weakness and this opportunity for others to take advantage of me, which is, I know, is all stories in my own head. So there's definitely expectations within me to keep pushing on, but I also know that it's about the benefits that we get from being vulnerable and just going, I'm really struggling in this space. And when I start to have those conversations, particularly more so with my husband, but even with some girlfriends, and go, I'm really struggling, I'm not sure where to go next. The next thing comes up for me. Like, I tend to work through things a lot better. So there was definitely a feeling that I needed to stay strong, but there was also that knowing that being vulnerable and sharing my challenges would also help other people along the way as well.
So at the beginning, when the pandemic first started, and there was so much going on. I had people who had losses around me, and it was just a lot. And I felt that I had to be there for everyone. I had friends and I knew people who were normally so strong and resilient, and out of the blue, they were coming to me and talking about being depressed. And so I felt like, here I am in this course and to be a health coach, and here I am to help people. That's what I want to do. So here I am. And I realized that for a while, I was so much there for everyone else. I felt that I had to be so strong and help everyone through their struggle. But I was also dealing with my own issues. And so once again, I had to get to a point and realize, like, Jazz, you are not Superwoman, okay? No one is expecting, just because I may have the ability and I love to help people, doesn't mean that I have to be Superwoman. I'm allowed to face my own issues, my own fear, my own, sadness at times. That's part of being human. That's okay. You don't have to be Superwoman. You don't have to be there for everyone all the time, fully ready to go. So how could I be this perfect person showing up to be there for everyone? It just doesn't exist. I'm not Superwoman. I am a woman. I'm compassionate. I care. I'm empathetic, but I'm not a superhero. And so taking that time and doing what I have to do for myself, dealing with my own emotions, that became something new that I wasn't always used to. I was always used to just putting my energy into something else and not always dealing with certain situations. It was always easy to put myself into work. So during this year was one of the first times where I didn't have to run back and forth everywhere. I was working, doing what I had to from home. So it gave me the time to really focus on me.
With the support of my family, I was able to be vulnerable and stay honest and authentic through the ups and downs. And as Katie said, I think we both were lucky to be in households where we were supported during hard days.
So I didn't feel that it was so much expected by the people around me. I think that the entire planet realized that if we were going to survive, we had to stay strong to a certain extent. And I think if you were lucky, you were in a household that allowed bad days. So in my house, we very much acknowledged the days where we were feeling a bit low, but encouraged each other to pick ourselves up quite quickly. So it wasn't a negative pressure, but it was we're going to get through this if we slap a smile on our face and make the best of it.
One of the things that I learned is to follow my intuition, number one. Certain things are always clear. Certain situations, are not the best. Certain people are sometimes really negative. You know what that is, who they are. So it's a level of knowing who you allow into your space, number one, as far as that's concerned. Who am I allowing close to me? How far am I allowing them to take me down a rabbit hole? I like to, follow that positive lead whenever possible and just kind of be able to take people out of it. But then also getting back to, how do I focus on self-care for myself? Well, yes, knowing those people or situations I need to stay away from, check. The other thing is, what am I doing for myself in the midst of all this? For me, I love to exercise. Yes, I have a background in fitness, but what I've learned for me is that fitness, exercise, movement, it makes me feel good. So I do things to make me feel good as a way to nurture myself. I enjoy moving. I enjoy dancing. I enjoy going for walks. I enjoy rowing. Like whatever it is, do things that bring you joy. You can't just be about everyone else. Everyone is taking care of your family, taking care of you have to find that time to bring yourself joy. Because then what's the point of life if I'm not doing things that I enjoy and that I really love? Reading. I miss listening to Audible and reading my books on the subway. So now I have a calendar and I schedule in things that I want to do, because if it's in the calendar, I'm going to do it. I treat it as an appointment. I treat it like a client. So there are ways that we can really trick ourselves into making sure that we are definitely adding self-care into the mix. Because if you're not strong and feeling good and feeling confident and really feeling that you have any situation under control, how could you possibly just throw yourself in and be there for everyone else?
I myself am not a mom, and I don't really have a family to take care of. But I think it's in the little things, and prioritizing time for ourselves starts with understanding what it means for us truly. And that's what I meant with bioindividuality earlier, is what taking care of myself means is probably not the same as what Katie means for herself. And for me personally, it's been about gentle movements, about prioritizing sleep, and also prioritizing improving my communication with others. That's really the top three for me. And I think it's really important that we each define what it means for ourselves truly to take time and energy for ourselves.
I'm also not a mother and can't even imagine what it must have been like to have a year in the home with 1, 2, 3 other people to look after. I don't have an insight other than I'm very impressed by every mother who made it through this year and have a lot of respect for them.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I'd like to suggest here, and I do it with love and kindness and not knowing everybody's situation. But the first thing is that we can create time. We often say that we're busy, but when we really look at our day, and there are so many pockets of just 5 minutes that we can take out for ourselves. And when we do those things, we know that we'll feel better. Often the challenge is more around getting off the couch or getting away from the desk and just going for that walk. It's the voice in our head that tells us, no, you don't need to do that. You can just sit here. But the reality is we will feel better when we go and do those things. So just putting ourselves first and going out and creating that time, because as I said, the pocket of time is there. So let's make the most of it. The second thing I'd like to offer is that we can take time for ourselves amongst life. So often in my mind, at the beginning of my journey, I was telling myself that it had to be separate. Like I had to have my time and then I could come into the family or into the work life or whatever. But often playing with our kids can be our soul time, just watching them get joy from what they're doing. Being in a meeting and taking 3 deep breaths whilst listening, that's totally possible. Or walking up a flight of stairs rather than getting the lift. It's not about the exercise per se, whilst that's a benefit. It's actually about just prioritising yourself and just taking that little bit of time for yourself. And so I just encourage everybody just to slow down their mind in the busyness of life and anchor back into what's true for them. And, it's all about having fun. Like if you're doing something and it's not fun for you, then stop doing it. Find something that you do really enjoy. And it could be that online yoga class or the Zumba class or whatever. Just get out there and have some fun and just find what works for you.
This year I found myself tapping in a lot to, we were so connected to social media, so connected to the news. Or we had to know what was going on all the time. And it was one thing, social injustice, the pandemic, the election. It was constant. And so there's this constant noise. And you find yourself, the time that you could potentially be prioritizing for yourself, you are finding yourself either plugged in to the news, what's going on, what's happening. As if we have to know every second of the day what's going on. And so I had to have certain practices where I turned off my notifications on my phone for any social media and posts and updates from the news. I found these great channels on YouTube that I put on things like the beautiful waterfall and the coral reef. And I really made my environment peaceful. I made it as peaceful as possible in the midst of a chaotic environment. And setting that for myself helped me prioritize. That was part of me prioritizing my health, my overall well-being, controlling my stress level. Because I do have an autoimmune, I have to control my stress. Stress and Hashimoto's do not go hand in hand. So I really prioritizing myself, and what kept me calm, joyful, in a space of gratitude. All those things all mean that I'm not only mentally better, physically, my body, what's going on with my autoimmune, I'm also keeping that in check as well.
I'd say that I more struggle with finding the right balance, and sometimes, that's with the family and work priorities and personal priorities, just finding that time within that space. And that's still a work in progress for me. So I don't think that that's something that naturally goes away. It's something just about prioritising the time that I need. But I also know that I have a family, I have a husband, I have a son, I have bonus sons, I have a business. So making sure that they get the time and airtime that they need as well. So, I don't struggle with prioritising myself. It's just where does that fit within my day? And what I learnt early on was often that would be the best time is first thing in the morning for me. So if I can get out of bed just half an hour earlier than everybody else, then that just sets up my day really well. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes, Teddy, my son, will come down and he just won't settle if I'm not in the bed. So I just stay in bed with him, and then I just find those 5-minute pockets of time throughout the day where I can journal, I can just do some breathing, I can turn on some meditation music. I can be working and have the meditation music going. It doesn't have to be separated. So just finding those other ways to do it certainly works as well.
I didn't have a job for a long time in the year. So that means I had a lot of time on my hands to support myself in the way I wanted to. I did a couple small jobs, but I was lucky enough to be in a house where I had time for myself.
Similarly, I would say no, but only because, our current project that we're working on, food, is currently born out of issues we both had in the past with food. I think I didn't mind saying that. And so after a lifetime of my own troubled eating and trying to figure out ways to recover out of that, I entered the COVID period with a whole toolbox of rituals and self-help methods. And I was just really quite lucky to enter COVID and the pandemic period already quite sturdy. Had it been a year or two before, I don't think it would have been the same. But prioritising myself had been a kind of decade-long journey that quite nicely timed with a turbulent time for the world.
I'm always discovering who I am. It's always an evolution, and I believe for me that it's okay to change, grow and evolve. And I encourage other women to do that too. The only person that defines you is you. So go and be exactly who you want to be. Don't be defined by other people. Just make those choices that are aligned with you and keep moving forward.
The lesson I've learned this year to turn off the news, turn off your phone, turn off my phone, and to call your best friends when you're feeling low, because sometimes that's been the only thing that's made me laugh.
What I came to understand during this year is that we are made of many layers, and I think it's important to give ourselves the gratitude to go our own pace for each of these layers. And just because on one layer we're growing and we're feeling great doesn't mean that there isn't another layer where we're struggling.
I am a resilient woman.